Hello, nephew community. This is Michael Filsinger, clinical and scientific liaison. I had the pleasure today of spending some time with Mandy Trolinger. She is an esteemed physician assistant in Denver, Colorado, and has a phenomenal clinical background and has dedicated herself to the nephrology space for some time now. She practices as a nephrology physician assistant, and we're going to learn a little bit more about her. So Mandy, thanks for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here doing this podcast, and looking forward to it.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Absolutely. Do you mind taking a minute and just telling us a little bit about your background? I know you're a physician assistant. Obviously, we know you do some great things in the nephrology space, but can you maybe tell us a little bit about your background, maybe how you got to be a PA and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started out as a dietitian, and when I learned about the dietetics role in nephrology was actually during my first transplant, which I underwent when I was 14 years old. And the science and complexity of the kidneys and the role diet played just was really intriguing. And I ended up going down that career path and started out as a renal dietitian. And then years later, I kind of wanted more clinical information and education. And that's when I had learned and worked with several advanced practitioners and decided to go that route. And then, of course, it did back up in nephrology after that. So it's kind of, I'm in a unique position as I've had a patient perspective, a dietetics perspective, and a physician assistant perspective. So each profession helps the other and has been very beneficial and made it a really good career choice for me.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, that's an incredible story, and can understand why maybe you were intrigued by the nephrology space, especially at such a young age and having a transplant. So that's very interesting. Tell us about where you practice now.
Well, I'm currently in Denver, Colorado, and I work for a nephrology practice where I see office patients and chronic kidney disease management. I still do some nutrition counseling or medical nutrition therapy appointments because that still plays a huge role with chronic kidney disease, as well as dialysis and transplant. I also do our education options, which is just counseling and educating people, hopefully early on, is when we try to catch them as far as transitioning to dialysis and moving towards transplant. I've done some hospital coverage in the past as well. I also cover our hemodialysis unit and help out with the peritoneal and home hemodialysis programs, which those seem to be growing more and more currently. So it's really cool, the technology that has occurred there and the differences in the new machines and all of that has been really an interesting area to learn. We also have a research department, which is great because it still goes back when I did my master's degree, and still keeping that research in a little bit in my field. And I'm fortunate enough to work with Jeff Block, who's done tons of research over the decades, and fortunate enough that he's still included me in some of those. So that's been another aspect as well. I definitely like not sitting in one place, as far as I would not be a good person to do office 8 to 5, 5 days a week. I like moving around in the different settings and seeing different patients and helping patients in a variety of ways.
Wow, absolutely. That sounds great. It sounds like you wear a lot of different hats within your role as a PA in nephrology. So I can see you're never doing quite the same thing all the time. So that's great. It sounds like a lot of great opportunities you get to explore, and a lot of great material you bring to your patients and to your colleagues. I wanted to ask you a little bit more. What could you help us understand? You know, obviously you being a transplant patient, what do you think that you being a transplant patient helps you do as a provider now that you're on the other side? What do you think that you're able to provide for patients, given your kind of personal experience in the nephrology space?